Hello, and welcome to the second part of the basic subscription journey. In this lecture, we will handle the post request when users click the Submit button on the Sign Up form. Test the user creation journey. We ended the previous lecture with the user being able to see the Sign Up form. In this lecture, we will complete that journey. Users will fill in their data and click on the Submit button. The post method that we are about to create will handle the request, perform some checks, and if all data is valid, delegate to the service layer the task of creating a new user record. First, we will make sure that we are pointing at the user account branch with the git command git checkout user account. Now, we will add a couple of methods to the user service class. One defines a user given a username, and the other one defines a user given an email. We need these two methods to ensure that the username and email that users fill in the sign-up form are unique. I'm now going to copy the code that I prepared for this lecture, and then I'll talk you through it. These two methods are really simple. They simply delegate to the repository layer the query execution and return the result. If a user couldn't be found for a given username or password, they return null. Next, we will create a plan service class. We can right-click on the service package, select New Class, and name it Plan Service. As usual, we annotate it with the @service annotation so that it becomes available as a Spring component. We also annotate it with the @transactional read-only true as seen in previous lecture. I'm now going to copy the service implementation that I've prepared for this lecture, and then I'll talk you through it. Here, we have auto-wired a plan repository to delegate data store operations to it. Then, we have created two methods: find plan by ID, which tries to find the plan given an ID, and we will use this method to make sure that the plan ID passed to the controller exists in the database, and create a plan, which creates a new plan in the database. We will use this method in a minute. We have annotated this method with the @transactional annotation because this is a method that will change the database state. Then, we have simply invoked the save method on the plan repository, passing as argument a plan entity that we have created using the constructor that accepts a plan's enum as argument. Now, we need to add some behavior to the DevOps body application. At startup, we need to make sure that basic and pro plans exist in the database, or we won't be able to link users to it and therefore create a user account. So we can open the DevOps body application and do the following. First, we auto-wire the plan service that we have just created. Then, we invoke its create plan for both plans enum basic and plans enum pro. Now, when the application starts up, the database engine will make sure that basic and pro plan exist in the database. Now, we can head back to the sign-up controller and implement the post request. First, we will auto-wire a plan service and the user service. Then, we are going to add 4 new constants. Duplicate username key, which signals the sign-up page that the username has already been taken. Duplicate email key, which signals the sign-up page that the chosen email has already been taken. Signed up message key, which signals the sign-up page that the user sign-up was successful. And finally, error message key, which identifies the model map key for the error message we want to display to the user when things go wrong. Next, I'm going to copy the post method definition and implementation that I've prepared for this lecture, and then I'll talk you through it. As usual, we have annotated the method with the @request_mapping annotation and the request method post value for the method attribute. The method accepts a plan ID parameter, which is required, an instance of a pro account payload object filled with the form data, and the model map that Spring automatically fills for us. Notice how, for the pro account payload object, we have defined the @model attribute annotation and how we have used the @valid annotation. This annotation makes sure that the pro account payload object contains data that is consistent with the annotations that we have added to the basic account payload POJO. If we quickly open it, you will recall that here we have used the @notnull and @email annotations. Also, please notice that the plan ID parameter comes from the hidden form field that we have declared in the sign up page from the previous lecture. The method ensures that the plan ID value is valid, that it is contained in the plans enum annotation, and if it's not, it sets an error condition and exits. Otherwise, it invokes the check for duplicates method to make sure that the username and email values entered by the user haven't already been taken. This method uses the two new methods we have added to the user service. If either the email or username are found, it sets an error condition in the model map and returns. The post method then, in case the model map is not empty, sets an error condition and returns. Otherwise, we transform the Pro Account payload Pojo into a user entity, using the user utils from web user to domain user method that we have written a few lectures ago. With this method, we are transforming a front-end Pojo into a database entity Pojo. Next, we retrieve the plan entity for the given ID. If the entity couldn't be found in the database, we set an error condition. This now should not be the case since we are creating the plans at startup. The method then sets the plan in the user entity. Next, it sets the appropriate role, depending on whether users have subscribed for a basic or a pro subscription, and it delegates to the user service the creation of a user record. Finally, if the user was created successfully, we auto-authenticate the user programmatically, set the model map flag that indicates success to true, and return the same view name that the get method returns. If we restart the application now, fill in the sign-up form and press the Submit button, we should see the green box at the top that informs us that the user has been created. We can also notice that we have been automatically logged in, as now we can see the logout button in the top right of the nav bar. We can also try with an existing username or email. For instance, we can try with the username and email that we have used to create the default user at startup. The values that the application uses are stored in the application common.properties file under the .devops body folder. In my case, the default username is admin and the default email is marco@devopsfolks.com. First, we need to log out to start the journey from scratch. Then, we can click on Home and select the Basic Plan option. Here we can enter admin as username and marco@devopsfolks.com as email. You probably will need to enter your own values. It doesn't matter what we enter for the other form fields as long as our validation passes. You can see how the error message at the top indicates that both values already exist and how two form fields now display differently. First, the label has changed to contain the text already taken. This comes from the I89 properties that we have defined in case of duplicate values. Also, they have now a red border that we have defined in the styles.css file during the previous lecture. Congratulations! You have now added the capability for users to subscribe with a basic account. If you select the Pro Account option, you will still be able to subscribe, but the user journey will be identical. The only difference is in the database, where the assigned role will be Pro instead of Basic. Later on in the course, we will add the capabilities to our website to manage credit card information. First though, we want our users to be able to upload an image of themselves. We will add this capability in the next couple of lectures, where we will be implementing the Amazon S3 service to manage images. For now, we can close the Git flow workflow with the Git commands git add star, git commit -m added post method to the signup controller, and git push. Then we will merge to develop with the git commands git checkout develop, git merge user account, and finally git push. Thank you for your time, and I see you in the next lecture.